Hey, how you doing, everybody? This is Robert Rivera with another edition of Who's On First. And today we're going to switch it up. It's not baseball, it's not sports, but it is sports. And today we have a special guest. We have Beau Williams. He's on, and we're going to talk about some mental health. So, Beau, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I'm Beau, and I work here locally in Ocala at my life council. I've been a counselor working with kids, teens, families for about 17 years in various different aspects. I specialize in trauma and trauma-informed care. You know, mental health has been a part of my life. It's been a part of my personal journey. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation today.
I've been meaning to chase you down to do this episode, and it's becoming more and more out there, more predominantly. And as a matter of fact, today I was watching the news, and Kendall Toole, the Peloton girl, she comes out and she suffers from anxiety, and she suffers from I forgot what they called it, but she suffered in silence for years. And it wasn't just till recently that she finally came out with it and was telling people, don't suffer in silence, you know? Right. And she was in college, and she was ready to jump off of her dorm building. I mean, it's something that I believe that it's becoming an epidemic. I had COVID in 2019, and I went through a lot of mental health. I mean, are you seeing more people than usual?
I think there's two aspects. I think I am seeing more than usual because of COVID. There's definitely been an effect from that, but also I honestly believe too that there is starting to be a bigger awareness of mental health, and mental health isn't as taboo as it used to be. So it used to be like, man, don't tell anybody you're going to go see a counselor because that means something's like cuckoo upstairs. But now it's like, hey, I'm going to counseling. Like, oh, really? I am too. And it's starting to become more of an accepted thing. So the more accepted it is to say, listen, I have a struggle and I need to talk to somebody about it, then we have an influx of people saying, I need help. And I'm learning that it's okay to say that I need help. So it's not necessarily all negative. Some of it is positive, but definitely some of the results of the pandemic are really flooding. And we're seeing a higher number of like 10th, 11th, and 12th graders in high school, you know, that the ones that were freshmen, 8th graders and freshmen during the pandemic now are juniors, seniors. There's a big struggle with trying to find your place in school now. Like, do I even want to go to school? I didn't have to go to school during the pandemic, but I miss my friends, but I really don't want to go back. So it's really causing this back and forth behavior. So there's definitely an epidemic of crisis of mental health since COVID. But there's also more acceptance to trying to get through some of these mental health. So some bad, some good.
What group do you see more? Is it more teenagers? Is it younger?
Because of the nature of what I do personally, I see such a widespread group of people, and I'm finding that it kind of ebbs and flows. That sometimes I see a big group of girls coming in, then all of a sudden it shifts, and I have predominantly teenage boys, and from I do about 70% of who I see are kids and teenagers. And that has been a big shift from when I first started. We weren't getting a whole lot of individuals. We weren't getting a whole lot of teenagers. This was about a little over 4 years ago, but now we're seeing a big influx of kids and teens coming in.
When I was growing up, you didn't go to therapy. I didn't go to therapy.
No,
you know,
no.
And I'm a big boy. All the big boy jokes, the fat jokes came around, you know, but sometimes I feel like these kids go a little bit too far. You know, they take it to a whole extreme. And with the social media that we have, you know, before, if you made a joke, you had 5 guys and the joke was heard amongst 5 people. But now you make a joke and everybody sees it on TikTok, on Facebook. You don't want 10,000 people to know you got a bad haircut. Nobody wants that. The old toughen up and suck it up and all that, it can really jar you after a while, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Because like you said, growing up, you know, you fought your buddy, right? You and your buddy, you got in a fight and you duked it out. and you bloodied each other up, and then you brush each other off, and next day you're hanging out with each other next day, right? He might tell a couple people, but you're joking about it. Or, hey, you might just say, hey, you know what, we can't be friends anymore, fine, whatever. And like, you go your separate ways. But now, because of social media, you develop teams, right? So now you got this people against these people. It becomes a weight to bear, because we're trying to manage who's going to stay on my side, especially our pro athletes. Some are considered villains and stuff, like, but yeah, I got their jersey, but oh my goodness, man, they didn't have a good year this year, so now they're trash. And they got people in these and athletes, no matter where they're at, whether it is Little League baseball, or whether it's high school, or whether it is softball. I mean, it doesn't matter where it's at. When they're on social media and they're having to manage the weight of their followers, that's a lot for a young person to bear. That's a lot for any human to bear, to say, man, I've got to please all these people. I've got 2,000 followers, and they're expecting me to go 2 for 4 tonight, or they're expecting me to have 28 points, and if I don't, man, I'm just going to get hammered on social media. That becomes too big of a weight. We only have the mental capacity to manage about 150 relationships in our lifetime. Okay, so to manage 150, and to manage, I can't remember the statistic right off the bat, but I think it's something like 10 to 15 close relationships. So 150 in all, and then 15 close relationships. So what happens when you have 1,000 followers on TikTok? What happens when you're trying to manage 2, 5, 10, hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, and we're trying to please all of them? Man, that's a weight that even psychologists and doctors are like, the weight of that is just too heavy for us, for people to bear mentally. So I'm not like anti social media, but I am anti putting our value in social media. And I think so much of that is the issue with social media, is I got to put my value in that like button. For athletes, you got people who are sitting in stands watching, we call it the fish bowl, right? We're watching every little thing they do. You're standing outside the little bowl, and we're watching if the fish goes through the castle or whatnot.
Yeah.
But they're on the baseball field, they're on the basketball court, we're watching them. They are exposed, they are vulnerable to our criticism, they are exposed to our praise. And when I can sit behind a computer and say, that guy's a piece of trash, he's a piece of what, like, in all the things, and he reads that, and he's got 45 people saying that, 45 people trashing him and 2,000 people praising him, he's going to focus on that 45. She's going to focus on that 45.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm not anti-social media, but it's not real connection. It's not real. It feels real. It looks real. It's not real. Like I said, we grew up, we had real connections. We're at the diamond playing. And the worst thing you're going to get is might get a comment or two from somebody in town, and you might get the local sports writer to say something in the newspaper, right? But now you got 2,000 news reporters reporting on you, negative, positive, all that. So it definitely becomes a very big weight to bear, especially in the sports community.
There's a lot of pressure I'm starting to see put on the younger and younger kids. I mean, you're talking about, 8U travel ball. I never thought of that. 9 and 10U, baseball, and these guys are traveling. And when I tell you they travel, they travel. You would think they were a minor league team. It's a lot of pressure on these kids, and I'm starting to see it. And I always had a problem with that one parent that wants to stand behind, home plate, and as their kid is batting, they want to tell them, hey, fix your foot, look up, put down. And I'm sitting there going, please, guys, don't do that. They're so focused on what what you're telling them, that they're not looking at the ball coming into them, and if they can't focus on that one thing, that's the one thing that can hurt them. They get hit in the face. It's just very distracting to them. Yeah. And on top of that, your kid makes an error, and the parents going ballistic in the stands.
Right.
On the flip side of it, as a parent, I'm having you in the travel ball team, and I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning to get you to the field. We start warm-ups at 7 o'clock. I mean, it's a lot. And then you're talking about a financial investment,
Yeah. Yeah.
uniforms, cleats. There's a
Yeah.
lot of money in it. When I played Little League, my dad paid 80 bucks. 80
Yeah.
bucks. We got 15 games, 14 games, something like that. And then that was it.
Right.
And kudos to them. I wish I had it. I'm
Right.
jealous. I could say,
Right.
I could tell you
Right.
that much. I wish here I am wearing my brother's cleats from last year.
Last year. Yeah. Yep. But
You know,
and then the pressure of their teammates, right? So if you got the 70, or you got the hand me down bat, you got the kid with the $250 bat. Kids can be cruel to each other on the same team just because you don't have the latest shoe or the latest glove or the latest bat, and so then that creates more pressure. Then there comes animosity. I think what we're seeing in this shift is we are, as a society, looking for something to put our value into, and we forget that we're just valuable as humans just because we are who we are. Not because I'm a great baseball player, not because I'm a great basketball player, not because I'm a track athlete or a softball player. I think we're seeing this, I think you're going to mention this here in a little bit, but we're seeing this epidemic of athletes who are taking their lives, and because they're placing their value in the sport. And when we're trying to find our value in a sport, man, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So you're talking 80 bucks, 14 games. You went out and you had fun in the wintertime. We worked out in the gym. We came back next season, we played. That was for the love of the game, and that was because it was fun. And hey,
right,
there might be a guy who stood out a little bit more, and he took it a little bit more seriously, and he took it to that next step. And man,
right,
you hope you cheered for the guy, right? Man, I hope he
right,
makes it in the minors, right?
right.
I hope he gets drafted. That'd be so sweet. But that was love of the game. And hey, if I can take that next step, sweet. But now it's like, I'm going to be playing baseball. I'm going to play basketball because that's where my value's at. So what happens when we don't make the team, or we don't get the scholarship, or we're being criticized because we dropped a couple seconds off of our track time, right? Then what happens is that, oh, our fan base is leaving. I just lost 500 followers today because last season I batted 325, and this season I'm batting 290, and it doesn't look like I'm going to be in the top 3 rounds of the draft pick. So now my followers are sitting there leaving me. So now where's my value at? So now
Mhm.
I like, my life's over because I tore my knee up, or my life's over because this relationship left me. And how can I play baseball with this, without this relationship? Because I don't have the relationship. Now I don't have baseball. So now I don't have anything. And we have placed our value in a sport, or we placed our value in likes on social media. And when we place our value on anything other than knowing who we truly are, then we're susceptible to not low self-esteem, but low self-worth. And that's a huge trap that we can fall into, that can be very destructive to our mental health.
Some of these parents that are out there, and these coaches, some of these coaches are really, really strict and rough and
Yeah.
tough. I mean, if a kid comes up to the parent and says, "Hey, I'm really stressed out," what would you say to him?
I think that it starts at, I'm all for a high discipline coach. I'm all for wanting to do things right. I'm coaching for the first time in my life, a sport that I've never coached before. I'm doing it for the sake of my family, my daughter, and it's fun. We're having a great time, and it's not anything major or serious. But I remind my players at the beginning and at the end of practice, I said, your value and worth is not put in by how successful we are on the court.
Hmm.
Okay. My kid comes to me, hey, volleyball stressing me out, baseball stressing me out, football stressing me out. All right, let's have a conversation. Because the reason why we have conversation and speak it out, one of the things I would tell a coach and a parent, be like, hey, let's sit down and talk about what this is. We don't dismiss a kid that says I'm struggling. Metaphorically, we say, hey, rub some dirt on it, you'll be all right. Okay.
Right.
So toughen up, buttercup. It's going to get, life's tough, and we just got to, nope. What happens is we can go to places in our head faster than what we talk. Okay. So I can start off thinking, man, I went 0 for 3 today. I struck out on the slider. That kid's fastball was really super tough, and I had no idea why I swung at that one of that. So we can sit back and mentally go through that game and make adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
But if we sit there and go through the game, then all of a sudden it's like, man, and then I heard the parent say mean things to my parent, and I heard like, why is this kid on the team? And we hear those kids hear that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So then where does their mind go? They go home and they lay in bed and they hear that parent's comment. They lay in bed and they hear their coach, or they can envision their coach rolling their eyes at them again when they made their second error of the game. The advice is we got to talk, and we got to have conversations, and we got to have conversations that are tough, to tell our kids, I hear you and I see you and you're valuable to our team. That's why you're here. Okay.
Right.
So just because we didn't do well, let's figure out what we need to do well. Let me teach you how to drown out parents. Let me help you understand. People are going to be mean to you your whole life. You can talk to me about it. When we're able to talk things out and use our words, and it's okay to use our words, then our mouth slows our mind down, puts it in the proper perspective instead of living in our head, because we can just go to the most dangerous places in our head really fast. That's when the mental health stuff really starts to kick in. So my advice is, you see a kid struggling, encourage them to use their words, let them talk. We say, hey, parents, have conversations about drugs, and have conversations about sex, have conversations about these things. But parents and coaches need to have conversations with their kiddos about their mental health. I recently had an athlete have a panic attack on court. They stopped the game. They didn't know what was going on. Coach called timeout. I walked over. They proceeded with the game, and I was with the player, and I was able to walk them through, and they were having a massive panic attack. And the panic attack wasn't about volleyball. It was about what happened at home the night before. Nothing like they weren't being abused or anything like that, but just a really sad situation and some heartbreak that the kid was going through, and it bled onto the court. And with that player, I wanted the player to learn two things. Number one, it wasn't about volleyball. It was about what was going on at home. Okay. So I refocused that player like, hey, we're here right now. The things that happened at home, they're real. Okay. And we can address those things. But what are we doing right now? We're playing volleyball, right? Yes, we're playing volleyball. Okay. So let's breathe, which we did some breathing exercises. So let's breathe. And what the most amazing thing was is that athlete played the rest of that day at the highest level they had played all season long. So I didn't say, hey, I didn't coddle them and say, hey, mom, dad, you need to come over here and let's pull your kid off the court. That's not what we did. I wanted to teach that kiddo, we can play through, we can be tough, we can breathe. Let's focus on today. Let's focus on where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. And when the game's over, let's have a conversation about what's going on at home. Right. And so that kid refocused, okay? Because what did they get to do? They got to talk, they got to hear, they got to breathe, they got to go through, they played their best volleyball. And by the way, that family comes in, we dealt with that issue. It was amazing. And it was just really great what happened to that athlete for the rest of the year. So why? Because they were encouraged that it's okay to speak out. It's okay to have a struggle. But I also want to teach them, hey, let's focus on what's going on right now. And let's bring this in, not encouraging them to quit, because life is going to get hard. And we still have to get up and go to work. And we still have to write the check to pay the bill. Yep. And life's going to get hard. And so if I can teach my athlete, life's going to get hard, we can push through. And then we deal with the problem at the right time. Man, that's a huge life skill. But if we're just teaching them, nope, everything and all your value, your worth is all based on how many points you score, how many hits you got, how many threes you hit, how fast you ran your track, all those things, right, then they're in trouble.
Baseball is a game of failure. It was one of those things I learned early. You will fail. You're the game sets you up to fail. And just when you think you're at the top there, the game will humble you. And just like
Yep.
in life, life will humble you. Just when you think
Absolutely.
you're at that top, you got everything under control, something's going to come along and it's going to knock you down. You're never down. You're either up or getting up.
Right.
Never down. And when things happen to us, the first thing I see a lot of people do is they want to know what happened. Why did it happen? And they want to figure it out right there in the moment. Okay,
Right.
I struck out. So why did I strike out? Why did you know what? Sometimes, guys, you just got to say, hey, you know what? I struck out.
Yeah.
And let's move on, because now I got to go get my glove and I'm ready to go play some defense. And that's what we
Right.
got to do. We got to pick each other up. And in society, you know, you see
Right.
somebody on the side of the road, they need a hand, give them a hand, you
Yeah.
know. But I do have a beef. I do have a beef with this whole suicide hotline and stuff. And it's something that it really just dawned on me a couple of weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
We have a 911 for police. We have a 311 for information. We have an 811 to call gas. We have all these 11s and 11s. What? How come we don't have 3 numbers to call for
Right.
suicide? The suicide hotline, by the way, guys, is 1-800-273-8255. Okay, we're gonna put that on the screen. Also, if you want to text to talk, okay, it's pound 741-741. I believe, and I'm gonna talk to probably the mayor of Ocala something. I believe there should be a 741. You can call 741. Write down, boom, boom, boom. Write
Yeah.
down that number, because to remember, it's bad enough you're distraught, you're upset, you're
Yeah.
angry, you want to end it, and now I have to remember 800, 273.
Right.
Who's gonna remember that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, think about somebody's breaking into your house. You got to dial 800. So, right.
Yeah, right. And it was one of the things that my wife goes, wow, never even thought about that. I said, yeah, we have all these 11s and call 311 and call 811 and call 911. And how come we don't have a number? If you are having thoughts of hurting yourself or hurting someone else, if you have those thoughts, guys, go to your parents, okay?
Yeah.
Talk to
Yeah.
your teachers, talk to your friend. And if you're a friend and you have somebody with these thoughts and they're thinking this, thinking that, talk to your parents so they can talk to the other kids' parents. Don't be afraid. Mental health is some serious stuff. We are losing teenagers. We are losing college athletes, students. I actually got to see a show with the parents, and the hurt that I can see on their faces is tremendous. They're brave enough to talk about what's going on. And the one girl, I believe she was a goalie at her college.
Yeah.
The whole problem was an academic issue.
Yes.
She was going through some academic discipline or something like that. And she had never gone through something like that. I don't want anybody out there to suffer in silence. This is not what we want. What was signs for B for like a kid that's going through some depression?
That one's really tough. And here's why, is because sometimes fear will mask hurt. And so if I'm fearful that somebody's going to find out, I'm going to be able to mask that fear really well. But I think ultimately it's going to take a conversation with your kiddo. And like I said, it's going to be a tough conversation. It's hard to have a conversation about, drugs and alcohol and sex and all the things that can be destructive and good and wonderful at the same time. But we got to have a conversation about mental health. Hey, how you doing? Probably one of the hardest things, and I'm a parent of 5. Okay. I've got a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, 17, 16, 15, like I've got 5. I have to be really purposeful in my conversations every day with my kids. My 20-year-old and I, we don't talk every day, but we talk once a week. My 19-year-old and I, we don't talk every day, but we talk because they're both out of the house. But the rest of my kids, my goal is to spend 5 to 10 minutes a day. I'm not talking about I have to go do this, I have to go do that. I'm talking 5 to 10 minutes of intentional time with my kiddos. And that changes so much. I tell my parents and teach my parents of teenagers who are struggling that come in. I say, there's 3 different kinds of people we need to talk to. Number one, we need to talk to We got to have the right friends. We got to have friendships, right? So peer to peer is important, okay? But especially when it comes to mental health. So if you got a friend, tell your friend you're struggling, okay? Secondly, we need to talk to our parents because more than likely our parents struggle too. I tell my parents the best counselor your kid has is you, because more than likely you went through it too. Sorry, my sprinklers are coming on. We raised our kids, and more than likely our kids are going to have our strengths and weaknesses. But also the third kind of person that they need to talk to is they need to talk to somebody who's been through it. So not just talking to a friend, but somebody who's older and talking to a parent. Then ultimately, if we really feel like we need to help, talk to a professional, talk to somebody to provide that safe place. Because you talk to a friend, your friend might tell somebody else. You talk to a parent, your parent might tell somebody else. You talk to somebody who's been through it, they might tell somebody else. You go to a counselor, you go to a therapist, they're required by law to keep their mouth shut. My goal in my office is to provide the safest place possible for a kid, a teen, an adult to come in and say, I'm struggling. And to be able to communicate that in a way that helps their struggle. And if they are a minor, to have a conversation. Because I tell my minors, listen, if there's something mom and dad need to know, I'm just not going to call up mom and dad and just tell them everything that you told me. I'm going to say, hey, I think mom and dad need to know. Let's you and I have a conversation together. And then me and you and mom and dad we'll all sit together and we'll talk about a struggle. Because if I just do that kind of stuff behind a kid's back, they don't want to go back to a counselor.
Right,
they're gonna be like, man, I just trusted this guy and he just told me, tell my parents all this crap, whatever. Right. So to find a safe place to be able to talk, to be able to express, but definitely to find a way to use our words to get it out and to have somebody who's able to help you process what you're going through.
My son was a swimmer and my daughter played soccer. And I took my dad's approach, and it wasn't until years later that I never understood the way my dad my dad would be like, go to your game. I'd be like, what? He's like, go to your game. Go take a walk. It was a 20-minute walk to the baseball field. He wouldn't drive me. Go take a walk. And as you're going, think about, what you practice, what you're doing. And I'm like, you can't give me a ride. It's like, no, I'm not going to give you a ride. Go,
right.
And I would get on the field and we would start practicing, and then the game would come around and I'd be like, where is my dad? Like, where is he? And it was a 7-inning game, and it's about, fourth, fifth inning. I finally see him. Oh, there he is. He's all the way in right field in the top corner there, sitting there by himself. And not a word, not nothing. Game is over. We always had this thing where if you struck out, every time you struck out, you had to hit a 5-gallon paint bucket of baseballs.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, he'd come around and he'd be like, what's going on? Nothing, Dad. I struck out twice. I know I got to hit the paint bucket. Okay. All right. Well, you made a good play here. You made a good play there. And we'd go home. If I wanted to talk about it, talk about it. If I didn't want to talk about it, didn't talk about it. Yeah. Wouldn't say a word. The next day, come on, let's go. We're going to the field. All right, we're driving. Nope. Get the paint bucket. Start carrying it. Start to carry all the equipment over there. Just put the ball in play. Things will happen.
Right.
Okay, we're good. Yeah. All right. Pick up the paint bucket. Let's go walk home. And it was it. It was done. It wasn't, I'm here to crucify you, but he said, hey, I pointed out the good stuff. Let's go home. The next day, we'll pick apart as to what happened.
Right.
It wasn't in the moment. It wasn't oh my God, tomorrow I'm in trouble. I'm going to get killed. Dad's going to be mad. It was never like that. And it was one of those deals when my kids started playing sports, I pulled that handoff approach. I take them, but hey, go to your team, go to your coach, and I would ask them, hey, so what number are you striving for today? My son would go, I don't know, for 30 seconds, 3 seconds.
Right.
He go, I don't know, Dad. Okay, you don't know? Cool, no problem. I don't know anything about strokes. I don't know anything about cupping your hand. I don't know none of that crap. 30 second, 40 second, hit it on 10. But all I asked my kids was give me 110%. I don't care if you lose. What I care is that if you're giving 110%,
right.
And it's about impressing your coaches.
Yeah, I teach my kids. I said there's probably always going to be somebody on the field, on the court, better than you. I
Mhm.
said, but don't ever let anybody outwork you.
Oh
I
yeah.
said, I mean, that was I knew that when I played basketball and soccer competitively. Now I'm racing. I'm starting to do 5Ks and do these races, but I don't want anybody to outwork me. I haven't won first place in a 5K. I'm racing against 17-year-olds who are running like 5.5 minute miles, and I'm like, you know. But in my last race, I had a guy. He turned around. He's like, man, I'm 43 years old. He looked at me. He's like, man, you got it. Like he's like, you know how to run,
Mhm.
and that boosted me up. Not because I won first place. I think I finished fifth. Okay, but I don't want anybody to outwork me.
Right.
And if I had a regret coming off the court, it wasn't that I didn't score so many points. It was, did I really leave it all out there? Did somebody on that court outwork me? Was somebody out there standing out more on that soccer field than I was? Because I always want to be the one that, man, Beau's not the greatest soccer player, but man, he doesn't stop. He doesn't quit. Like, okay. So I just want, but you know what's cool is that your dad, he built into you as a person. He didn't place the value as you as a kid in baseball. He just said, I want to teach my kid work. My dad and I, we had different conversations after a basketball game. He'd say, how many points you had tonight? I had 24 points. Well, why didn't you have 30? And he would be laughing. Okay. He wasn't like, why didn't you have 30? I'd be like, I don't know, Dad. He's like, well, you should have shot more. I'm like, Dad, I have to pass the ball every night. And we would laugh and we would joke and we would connect over that. He was never being critical. He was just always, just was always ribbing me. But then he would say, like, well, what do you think you need to work on? Then my dad would take me to games and he'd say, do you think you could hang with those guys? I'm like, I don't know, Dad. I don't know. They're pretty fast. But he never built into me like saying that I'm valuable only if I'm good at basketball and soccer. But he was always push and say, hey, what could you do to get better? Right? Do you see someone out there who can work hard on you? One of my favorite basketball players, I grew up in Ohio, so I watch Ohio State. One of my favorite basketball players years ago for Ohio State Buckeyes was Aaron Kraft. And Aaron Kraft, he got drafted in the NBA. He meddled around. He went overseas. I don't think he's playing. He might be playing a little bit overseas. When he got on the court, nobody worked harder than that guy.
Yeah.
And he was not the biggest. He was not the fastest. He was not the best shooter. He was not the best anything, except he was the best worker. It was absolutely incredible to watch. So, but I think once again, kind of going back to what I say, man, Beau, you say this a lot. I know, because I don't want my value to be placed in my performance, right? Like I'm only good if I'm scoring this many points. I'm only good if I have this batting average. I'm only a good person if I have these many kills and spikes in volleyball. That's not true. All failure is an opportunity to get better.
And that's exactly what you should do. You should build on the failures, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. But listen, I appreciate it. I appreciate you being on. I've taken out your time. I know you probably had a really long day, and you got to go see your kids.
Yep.
My kids, I have a tendency to ask them questions. Sometimes they say I'm the newspaper reporter. I always ask them some
Right.
weird questions.
Right.
They come home from school and I said, "Hey, what'd you have for lunch?"
Right.
They're like, I don't know,
Right.
pizza."
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
pizza.
I
There's
appreciate you having me on. It's really
no,
cool to be a talk to talk, and I would, anytime that you want me to be a part, man, I'd love it anytime.
yeah, absolutely. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, you got an email, a phone number?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You can I'll just give my email address. It's Beau at mylifecouncil.com.
Okay.
And that's my email address. And it's honestly, and you can go to mylifecouncil.com. That's our website. You can call our call service and you can request for me. But we have 7 counselors on staff who are very well trained. We have men, we have women, and who are equipped to help with depression and anxiety. We don't diagnose. We are like life coaches there, and
Right.
we are concerned about building relationships and building framework to help with mental health. We're not going to diagnose you with anything, but man, we are well equipped. We are a growing counseling center here in Ocala, because we love people, we invest in people. But like I said, me personally, Beau at mylifecouncil.com. And if you want to call in and request me, just call, whoever answers the phone, somebody will be in contact with you within 24 hours, and we'll put you in contact, and I'll contact you personally.
Yeah, his name is Beau Williams. And guys, listen, coaches, friends, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, if you see something going on, let's say something. Let's stop this.
Absolutely.
And losing one is one too many. We're not put on this earth to bury our children. We're not here because they made a mistake and that's it. It's the end of the line. And Kendall, this is going out to Kendall. This is one of the things her dad says. They can knock you down, but they can't knock you out. And at the end of her shows, you see she does her fists, and her dad takes her classes. And every time she does that, he raises it up for her. And I tell my kids all the time, guys, just have fun. Just have fun. Play hard, be smart, and have fun. All right, Beau. Well, thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Guys, if you need him, give him a call. He's got the email. We'll put the number down, the email down at the bottom there. And guys, as we always say on Who's On First, keep swinging. If you like the show, please do me a favor. Subscribe. Right. You see it? It's right there. Subscribe, share, like, and don't forget, put that bell on. It'll ding you when I put something else on, all right?